What's up, guys? Brady here, coming at you with a review of the new At the Gates album, The Ghost of a Future Dead, released about 2 weeks ago now, Friday, April 24th. This is the legendary melodic death metal band's 8th record, their 4th record since their comeback in 2014, and the swan song record for their late frontman Tomas Lindberg. May he rest in peace. Now, I could go on and on about this band's legacy and their influence on other metal subgenres, but instead of doing that in this video, I'm going to direct all of you guys to my At the Gates discography ranking, where I rank and talk about my thoughts on all of the band's previous albums in pretty good depth. One thing I will reference from that video, however, is the fact that their last album, The Nightmare of Being, placed pretty high up on my list. What I really love and respect about that album is that, for one, it's their most experimental record, but also just the fact that they came out with it 30 years into their career. That's evident in songs like Garden of Cyrus and Cosmic Pessimism. And going off of that, I really wasn't sure what to expect stylistically from this At the Gates record. I think it's at the point in the band's career, considering they are pretty much a legacy band at this point, that they could easily just come out with a rehashing of Slaughter of the Soul, and it would still probably be just as good. But that's not quite what they did on this record. But at the same time, this album is also not nearly as experimental as their last record, Nightmare of Being, like I just mentioned. I do think one thing that sets this record apart from just being a straightforward recycled melodeath album, like I think they, like I said, could have done, was just the mood of the record, because this is a very dark record sonically. Aside from the opener and lead single, The Fever Mask, which is about as straightforward At the Gates as the band gets on this record, it's still a good song, and a song that I enjoyed as a single. But I mean, it's all there. I mean, the triplet-based drum beats, the skank beats, the guitar harmonies, the riffing style, everything there. This is just straightforward classic At the Gates. There's a cool solo later on. It's a straightforward but good execution of this band's signature sound is the best way to describe it. And then parts of other tracks like Tomb of Heaven and The Unfathomable go for that too. But this track, The Fever Mask, is really the only track on here that fully goes for that. At the Gates has always done a good job of not being very monolithic with their sound. They've been just as triumphant as they have been dark and bleak, pretty much on all their records. But this record is one that really leans into that dark side of their atmosphere. I think it's very comparable to their 2018 record, To Drink from the Night itself, just in its overall style, taking a little bit of influence from black metal here and there. Dissonant Void, Ritual of Waste, and the closer Black Hole Emission are all instances of where that blackened influence comes in just slightly, just enough. But production-wise, this album is way better sounding than that record is. I actually kind of like the style of the production on that record, just being more rough around the edges and a little bit more lo-fi. But if you were a fan of the style of that record but just couldn't get into it because of the production, I would recommend this album for you. On the slight flip side, that does make this record feel just a little bit safe overall, which, I mean, I can't really criticize them for that much, just because, like I said, they're pretty much a legacy band at this point. There's nothing wrong with a legacy melodic death metal band just playing their style. And like I said, it's at least still spiced up enough with the darker moods of the songs, and at times stylistically, to give this record at least somewhat of a proper contrast and not just make it feel like a rehashing like I mentioned earlier. The Dissonant Void track too, that's a highlight for me on this record, just because I feel like it has a balance of all of At the Gates' prior material. It's got those really bottom-heavy, groovy verses. It's got that more eerie, again, kind of blackened, influenced, clean guitar intro, and also some more blackened melodies that are spliced in throughout the song. There's a really good solo on this song, and I think maybe the drums are not just on this song, but on this entire record, are maybe the one familiar aspect that wears on me a little bit. But at the same time, again, this is nothing new for At the Gates. This is kind of a criticism that I've always had for their music, is that the drums use a lot of the same beats, most notably the skank beats. If you don't know what a skank beat is, it's just bass snare, bass snare, bass snare, bass snare, really fast. It almost sounds like a slowed down blast beat a little bit, but the cymbals are being hit with every note. Of Interstellar Death, Unfathomable, two tracks where that at least kind of jumps out to me as especially familiar rhythm-wise, and like I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't itching a little bit for the band to just switch things up drum-wise. But going off of that, I think some of the best, brightest moments on this record are the songs that switch things up a little bit from the At the Gates norm. Parasitical Hive might be my favorite track on the whole record. I just love that bottom-heavy, groovy approach to the riffing on this song. Which usually actually these are the tracks on At the Gates' records that I gravitate towards more. Just on account of personal taste more than anything, just liking just fucking groovy ass riffs. And when At the Gates does go for that style, they usually execute it pretty well. Another good instance of that on this record is the track The Phantom Gospel, just right out of the gates, one of the best riffs on the album to open it. Just a really good groove behind it, and some more interesting rhythmic ideas that complement the riff itself very much, as opposed to just doing that same skank beat underneath everything. And there's also on that track a really cool mid-song solo that might be the best solo on the record. There's the track, bear with me, Det or Horta. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. That's another one that emphasizes a lot more groove, and as a result, it's a highlight for me on here. Ritual of Waste manages to do that while also having some of the best, like, dark melodies on the entire record. And then, yeah, similarly to Drink from the Night itself, I really enjoy the band leaning into more of like that black metal influence that comes in on a few tracks. In Dark Distortion maybe does that more so than any other track on here. It almost has like that really layered, full, saturated wall of sound type of intro. And then the verses have those really like ominous, eerie, clean guitar melodies. The chorus on Tomb of Heaven kind of does that too. It has more of like those ominous, like, again, eerie, clean guitars, this time more in the background. Black Hole Emission does that really well too, but with this track, there's in the middle, there's like this clean guitar break that ends up getting really, really layered as it progresses. It starts with clean guitars, and you get the distorted guitars kicking in, and then you get a lead section that gets added on top of that. And it just sounds really full, and I like how it keeps climbing and getting more full sounding, I guess. The instrumental track has some cool melodies, I guess, too. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but I at least like how it contributes to the mood of the album. I'm probably going to skip it if I listen back on it, but that's because I'm not big on interlude tracks in general, but I do like how it at least contributes to the mood. Overall, I do think maybe the album blends together slightly, just because a lot of the songs do go for the same mood, as I've already said. Just in a sense that if you're listening to the album like in full album format sequentially, it's a little bit hard to like distinguish each song from each other unless you're actually looking at the titles. That just plays into that same point I made about the album feeling like a little bit safe maybe. Hey guys, I'm editing and I wanted to add to that point. Yes, the album does blend together slightly, but at the same time I think that kind of works because it makes the album like a good passive listen. Like I was listening to this album a lot this past weekend when I was just like driving around running errands and doing chores and stuff, and it repeated like several times full length, and like it worked because it was good background music. Like I wasn't really focusing on it. So in that case, I think the blending together actually kind of adds to it. As expected, the production on this record, I have no complaints about. The guitar tone sounds nice and gritty. Everything sounds nice and full. The clean guitars in particular sound awesome. The bass and drums are right where they need to be in the mix. And of course, Thomas's vocals sound great on the production front, but also sonically. I mean, given the fact that this is literally his swan song record, he passed away shortly after recording it, he sounds fucking great. And honestly, I actually think his voice has gotten more distinct and more unique since the band's comeback. I love the howl in his voice, almost like he's calling out his lyrics. Like, I listened to his vocal lines on here, and I just imagine him shouting these lyrics out to this massive crowd. And maybe the best element out of this entire record for me is the lead guitar work. I think these solos always end up spicing up the track, which in metal, let's be honest, sometimes solos are there for no reason. But in this case, on this record, they all contribute to the mood. They all feel like they progress the song, and they all belong. So yeah, aside from a few picky criticisms, this is a good record. I have very little complaints that aren't also also just overall things I've noticed about At the Gates' entire discography, like I mentioned about the drums. I'm not sure if this is going to be the band's final record, but I will say if it is, I think this is a solid final record for them. It's a good execution of this band's familiar, tried and true sound. It's got a personality to it, just from the songs overall, like again, taking more of a darker approach throughout. And if you're an At the Gates fan, you will absolutely be happy with this record. For all those reasons, I'm going to score this album a 24 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to hit the subscribe button for more rock and related content and album reviews. And make sure to comment below your thoughts on this record if you've heard it. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace.